Well guys, good morning. And it is a very cloudy California fall/winter day, but it's kind of nice outside. I figured I'd record a video about my recent road trip with my 1997 SL500, which is looking pretty good right now with a total of 246,000 miles. It's not even 4 a.m., but it's time for a road trip in the good old SL500. So I just drove this car about 1,200 miles between Southern California and the San Francisco Bay Area and back. And this car was absolutely phenomenal. As you guys know on this channel, I did replace the entire suspension components in the front end, so all the bushings and ball joints, tie rods, steering box, drag links, strut springs are all new. This car is on Bilstein B4s and H&R lowering springs, and it is a fantastic combination. So something about this car is I've always found it very comfortable, even in its completely stock form, which it's not far from right now when it was on its stock 16-inch wheels with very, very thick sidewall tires and blown out suspension. The car drove like a dream, but now my goodness, it eats up the road so well, even at high speeds. And in fact, the way this car insulates you from, or maybe the better word is isolates you from the road, is just incredible. You can be doing triple-digit speeds on a massive corner in a winding, twisting sort of mountain back road, well, I guess more of a freeway in this case, and the car just soaks it up as if it's a modern S-Class. And I think the closest car I can compare this to is the W222 S550 we once had back in 2014. And that's pretty impressive for a car of this age and this mileage. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the drive from Southern California to Northern California, I-5 is sort of the central road, the central freeway that kind of chops up half the state. So you have the western side and eastern side. It goes up pretty much to the middle of all of California, through Oregon, Washington, even up to Canada. But as you exit sort of the main parts of LA and you kind of enter the Central Valley of California, there's this massive twisting mountain road called the Grape Vine, as they say. The Grape Vine consists of these huge sweeping turns, lots of elevation changes, and it is a fantastic road to drive in a car that is, well, fun to drive. And I didn't expect this car to be that fun, but it's fun in a different way from the C63 and SLS. You see, those cars, you're constantly changing gears, you're listening to the engine, you're having a lot of fun and just a great time in general. This car, you're not doing that, but it's just impressive that the way this car carries speed through those turns. I mean, it's effortless. It may not sound completely like it makes sense, but I compare this car with how it drives on road trips to something like the likes of a V12 or a 12-cylinder car. The effortless sort of propulsion is similar to something that I maybe experienced in my dad's old 2004 SL600 with the M275 twin-turbo V12, or even, a Bentley Continental GT with the W12. It's just this effortless, torquey acceleration, does not require changing gears, not dramatic whatsoever, but you just feel the car move forward without any effort. And that's saying a lot for a car that's, well, only a V8 and has about 300 horsepower. But let me just tell you, it feels like it has a lot more than 300 horsepower, and I'm sure there was some underestimation on numbers from the factory at the time. This is one of the only cars I've driven on this trip, which I've made many times, where I've actually just felt relaxed after the drive was over. Whether you're in traffic or you're just cruising the freeway, this thing does it all just very, very well. We only had one hitch though, which, well, somewhere on that famous Grape Vine, I did lose my turn signal lamp, which I only put in about a few months ago, and well, I was not very happy to find out that they do cost about double what they did when I bought them last time, which means I spent $200 US to buy that corner lamp, which, yeah, not ideal. But after kind of posting about it on Instagram, it seems like that is a very common issue, which is hard to believe, but I guess it is for R129s, W124s, W140s, any Mercedes from that era with the separate turn signal lamp. I guess also BMW E36, E38, whatever car from the 90s had that secondary lamp. This seems to be a common issue, so I'll be looking into a more permanent solution. I thought perhaps drilling a hole and adding a bolt or adding a zip tie or something as sort of a secondary safety measure. But other than that, I got that delivered while I was on my trip. Well, it's day 3 or 4 or something of my trip. It's been going pretty well. This car's been doing a phenomenal job aside from, well, losing a side marker. So we have a new one, it's ready to go. Let's get this installed and hopefully it does not back off again, and I'll see if there's a better way of securing it so that it does stay in place, because it seems like this is a common R129, W201, 140, etc. issues. So let's make sure this is taken care of once and for all. Let's pop the hood up first, and we'll see what we got going on. The star is a bit old and beat up, but you know what? It's a sign of mileage, and I think that's a cool thing. All right, here's the turn signal lamp in question, and here's the bulb, which has clearly seen better days, but it's gonna have to do for now. All right, I think that's kind of in, but I don't like how it took so much effort to get it in, which might be why this had a problem in the first place. So, it's physically in there. Now, let's see how we can further secure it, because I, quite frankly, don't trust it. Looking more closely kind of in this region where that corner lamp kind of connects to, you can see the exposed connection for the bulb, but it is really difficult to actually get anything in there. We have a better look on that side because that side is less obstructed. But even still, you know, there's not much you can do to do some extra security. What I might do is pull them out, drill a hole through them, put a tab through them, and then put a zip tie through that little hole and connect it to something else. But, you know, that being said, I can't do that here, so I kind of just have to hope that it survives my trip home. Well, both turn signals do now function, and they're not going to fall out for now, at least, so let's hope it stays that way. But I'll eventually come up with some sort of solution to maybe zip tie it more in place and to maybe provide a secondary anchor, because that one tab that holds it in place right now is clearly not enough. While I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, I met up with my friend Dylan, who has a lot of awesome cars. We met up because he, after I bought this SL almost exactly a year ago, he bought a near identical, well, not quite identical, but a 1998 SL500 with also 240+ thousand miles, and in smoke silver over 10 interior. You are looking at not one, but two 240,000 mile SL500s. Something else good about this car was surprisingly the muffler delete. So I deleted the muffler months ago, but I never actually took the trouble to go to the exhaust shop and have an extra piece of pipe welded on with an exhaust tip. Well, I finally did that last week, and with a little AMG style tip on it. Not officially AMG, of course, and I'm not super happy with how it looks. Kind of want to get it tucked in a bit more, but that's a separate issue. But it sounds so good, and on the freeway, it's quiet, which is exactly what you want for a big GT luxurious cruiser like this thing. Could not be happier with the sound of it right now. I'll put a couple sound clips up right now as well. Something else that surprised me was fuel economy. So I was expecting, okay, you got a big 5-liter V8, this thing's from 1997, engine's been around since 89, 90. It's not gonna be doing very well on gas, right? Well, I should have thought more about this, because my perspective is something of the likes of an 156 C63 or ML63, where they drink fuel like there's no tomorrow. On the same trip, I would get about maybe 18 miles per gallon. If I was trying 20 in my C63, this car got 25 without trying much, and I'm sure if I did try more, I probably could have squeezed out an extra few miles per gallon on the freeway. That may not sound like a lot, but for a big V8 and a heavy car, I'd say it's pretty good. Something else to discuss also is the handling of this car. So I wasn't exactly planning this, but I went out to Half Moon Bay area with this car while taking the drive with my girlfriend, and on the way back I saw some nice twisty roads, which happened to be, I believe, Skyline Drive, which takes you up by Alice's, where Highway 9 kind of meets up. I knew it would be a twisty road, but I wasn't expecting it to be as twisty as it was, which is funny because I have driven this road many times before in other cars. I was shocked at how well the SL did. You would think it's a big, heavy cruiser. It's not meant to take corners like that. The suspension's all reinforced W124 E-Class. But then I remembered that the wheelbase of this car is shorter than an E36. People criticize the SL for having numb steering, which kind of it was meant to have for its purpose. But while it's numb, you still know exactly what the front end is doing, and the rear end, because it's quite literally right behind you, you also know what it's doing. So it's a very commutative car, even on some garbage Westlake tires. These tires just came with my monoblocks and I left them on because they were brand new, but I will change those out soon. But for now, they're doing the job just fine. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by how well this car handled. And unlike other cars, like in a BMW, for example, E30, 6M3, E90 M3, whatever you're doing, you're usually revving the car out all the way to redline to get any power out of it, and you want that linearity to sort of help guide you through corners. This car, along with the C63 to be honest, those engines don't necessarily need to be revved out like that. You kind of can leave them in a higher gear, and then you kind of leave them at lower RPM, and they do the job just fine. In fact, you're putting less stress on the engine that way as well in most cases. So the 722.6 5-speed automatic in this car is probably the first iteration of this transmission to be used in a Mercedes model, or at least one of the first ones, and it is not a quick shifting transmission by modern standards. However, if you spent any time with the BMW from that time period with the ZF 5-speed, this is considerably faster than that in my opinion. My 5 Series used to be an automatic, before I manual swapped it of course, and it was the ZF 5, and that transmission was painfully slow. Now this one doesn't have the nicer slap shifter that you can just quickly shift up and down like the newer cars do have, but I didn't find myself needing to use it very much because it kind of just is fine in the higher gear because it has plenty of load and torque. And this car was, yeah, like I said, very surprising on a back road. Wouldn't be my first choice of car for that kind of driving, but it made me feel more appreciative of the suspension upgrades and refreshing that I've already done. So that was kind of a nice feeling. Only issue I had was I think I've worn out my brake pads because they were already probably low when I got the car and now they're due for replacement. But I'm not going to replace them. Instead, I'm going to upgrade the entire braking system to the later style Facelift 2. I want to say it's a 4-piston caliper up front with a slightly larger diameter rotor, similar to AMGs at the time, like the C55, C32, and cars like that. So we'll be doing that in the near future, so expect a video soon. And now that I have my 18-inch monoblocks on, they will fit behind no problem. They actually would not fit behind my older 16-inch style Moncaro wheels. Oh, and I should mention, I was also impressed by this. Not a single creak or rattle or whatever in the interior the entire drive. And I don't think any of the other cars that we have are that well put together. Well guys, that's it for this short little video. Hope you enjoy my content on this little short 1,200-mile road trip with the SL500. Phenomenal car. I do recommend it if you have a long highway commutes or you just want something that looks as cool as it drives. And honestly, this car has been really good about that. I'm very happy I bought this car. And I think between the lowering springs, monoblocks, I mean, you don't need to do much to make these cars look phenomenal. And I think mine's pretty close to that. And considering it's at 246,000 miles and it's doing just fine, it is pretty cool. It's a testament to its build quality. Something was going on. They were building cars much better back then, and it all kind of went downhill from then. So yeah, see you in the next one. If you guys like this video and all my content so far, check out sta-industries.com and check out all the German car apparel I have, especially M15 stick stuff. I have license plate frames, cool hoodies, sweaters, high quality stuff with nice embroidery. Check it out, you won't regret it. I'm always posting new stuff on the website, including ML stuff coming soon, specifically ML63 engine rebuild stuff, as it's pretty relevant to what I'm doing right now. But yeah, check out what I already got in there. Lots of cool M156 stuff that I really enjoy wearing while I work on my cars. There is also other Mercedes stuff already up there, like for my SL500, M119 stuff, including a lot of BMW apparel as well. So go check it out.